Alright, so I finally had my fill of all 50 games in UFO 50, and you know what that means. A tier list. Now, one of my favorite things about the UFO 50 community is how basically everyone has their own favorite game, and there's really no consensus on what the best game is, what the worst game is, and everyone has their own relation to each of these different games. That's something I really, really like, and something I like to see as well is how everyone's each unique relationship to each of these games. And one of the best ways to do that is through a tier list. So we can talk about each individual game, see how we feel about it, and then people can have disagreements on each individual placement, and that's fine. That's good. I really like how people have all these different opinions, and I just want to share mine because I like hearing other people's, and I want to share mine as well. Alright, so first off, Barbuda. We are starting off very strong. I love Barbuda. That going straight to S tier. Barbuda was the first game I played. I generally played in the numerical order in the game. And Barbuda was such a strong start for me. I love this. When I first started, I thought I was just going to go through one by one, beating each game, and then continue on to the next one. I didn't end up doing that. I gave up around like 5 or 6. But for Barbuda, I went through that in one setting and went through it not as quickly as I could, but I just consumed it. I went into Barbuda as quickly as I could, and I loved it. It was so much fun. I liked all the puzzles in it. I like how obscure a lot of the puzzles seem to be, how it doesn't seem to tell you any information, and it really gives that an authentic feeling 80s game experience. And that's just one of my favorite games. Honestly, if Barbuda was the only game in UFO 50, it would still be one of my favorite games of the year. And another thing I really like about it, I talked about Barbuda and a lot of the stuff I find interesting in my other video on it, but I really like how Barbuda has a bunch of different paths and a lot of different ways to get through it. It is like a Metroidvania, but you have a lot of open-endedness on where you can go, and you may not even be aware that there's a lot of different areas you can go in. Like, you might only solve one puzzle one way, and then completely skip by all the other puzzles that you didn't even notice or realize. And I think that's really unique. One strong part of Metroidvania game design is that you create these noticeable places where where your progress is being stopped, and most of the time that's really important. So then people can know, oh hey, I'm not supposed to be over here. I'm gonna keep going somewhere else. And Barbuda just doesn't do that. It lets you walk past all the new areas you can go past without any concern for you. And I think that's really interesting, to just be able to explore on your own terms without feeling like you're being guided. And I don't know, it's just a really good game. I want to play more games like Barbuda, but I understand that those are not something that a lot of people want to make or not want to play. So they're a bit difficult to find, but when I do, I love a good Barbuda-like game. Next is Bug Hunter. I'm not sure how I feel about Bug Hunter. I really liked it going into it, and I still do really like Bug Hunter. But now that I've played all the games in the collection, it feels like it's not one of the best ones. I think it's still pretty good. Probably around B tier. I enjoy Bug Hunter. I like strategy games in general, and I find Bug Hunter to be... It's both simple, and learning how to play it is difficult. So I think a lot of the appeal of Bug Hunter is when you're playing it for the first time and you're trying to learn all the different interactions in the game. And there are a lot of interactions. Oh my god. You can stomp on enemies. Just jump and stomp on an enemy and kill it. And that is not telegraphed anywhere. Is so difficult to figure that out. But when you do, it's oh hey, I figured something out. I found something on my own. And I think that's a really interesting thing to have in a strategy game, where strategy games usually want to give you all the information at once, but so then you can engage with the strategy in the way it's intended, but Bug Hunter is just leaving a bunch of information up to you to figure out on your own. And it means that the game gets a lot easier as you keep on playing. But I also think it's a unique experience that I haven't really seen in a lot of other strategy games. So, but also it gets a little repetitive in the end. Like once you've played it for a few hours, like yeah, it's all right, it's good, but I don't have any need to revisit this one. There is room to be like more efficient and everything, but yeah, not my favorite. Oh, also I want to add Barbuda. I golded. Bug Hunter. I'm pretty sure I cherried Bug Hunter. I don't know. I'm not gonna bother checking. I completed it to the point where I think I exhausted everything I could, and I mastered the game to the ability I want. I think I did. I went far enough at it. Now Ninpek. Oh my god, I love Ninpek. I don't think I S tier love it. I'm gonna put A tier. It's a nice arcadey platformer, and I feel like there's not a lot of those that come out recently with a lot of modern game design. Like Ninpek has a lot of modern game design. You get the sort of bubble system you get in something like New Super Mario Brothers, where once you die, you get some extra space before you respawn, and you can position yourself afterward. It's also kind of like a platformer shoot 'em up, which for some reason I feel like I haven't seen before. I feel like that's something that seems like a very simple concept of two very easy to program genres, but I've never seen a platformer quite like Ninpek. And it's nice, it's simple, but it's also a lot of fun. And it's also a score-based system. The first score-based system really in the pack, and I don't know, I really enjoy getting high scores. That's a lot of fun for me. I'm not a big fan of speedruns. Speedruns optimize play in a way that like I find uninteresting, because usually there's like already a known strategy for a game when you're trying to speedrun something, unless it's like a new game, of course. But development for strategies are slow, and it's very very community based. I enjoy the high score system a lot because it's a lot more personal. You can improve things on your own without having to refer to other people. Obviously, that would be different in a arcade setting, but for me personally, it's good. I like to do that by myself to just improve and get the highest score possible. I got a cherry on this one. I think this is it's the first numerically cherry I got. I cherried it a long time after everything else. Probably one of the last games I cherried, but Ninpek is a lot of fun. Love that game. Next is Paint Chase. Now, I've seen online that people do not like Paint Chase, but I love Paint Chase. Oh my god. Paint Chase is a very... So, I like I said, I like strategy games, and it's a very, like, Twitch action-focused strategy game. I like how much on-the-fly thinking you have to do in order to get a high score in the game. Oh, and also, oh my god, the cherry condition for Paint Chase, it used to be 255, I want to say, and then they nerfed it like all the way down to 200 or something, and that was really disappointing to me because I got the cherry before that the lowered requirements were patched in, and I thought that was a perfect place to put it, because mastering Paint Chase and getting the highest possible score for the 255 score requires almost no mistakes. You have to be basically perfect for every single level to get above whatever the old cherry requirement was. And I really enjoyed that. It's like you get strategies, and you really learn the game on a deep level, but also there's a lot of room for a mistake, and I find that really engaging. I don't know, I love Paint Chase. I don't really get why people dislike it, but it's one of my favorites. Now, Magic Garden, on the other hand, Magic Garden is something that I completely bounced off of the first time I played it. I was like, oh, okay, this is just a really lame Snake clone. I don't care about this. I don't want to play this that badly. But then I tried it out more. I got the hang of it. I played some other games. Magic Garden was the game that made me stop and go like, okay, I'm not gonna beat every game before I go on to the next one, because it was really hard for me. Magic Garden was hard for whatever reason. I think I was going for I was doing a really risky play style where I committed to getting the largest chain as I could. Uh, but yeah, that now I understand that you basically just want to get six and then get your potion and then clear things out. I still play with a really risky playstyle though to get that high score, but learning the game in that way is not fun. Um, but once I got the hang of Magic Garden, I really like it. I know it's a lot of people's favorite game in the entire collection. It's not for me. I do really like it, but I think this one's going to go to A tier. Now, Mortal is another one that I want to say I bounced off of, but I thought was uninteresting the first time I played it. I was like, okay, so this is a platform with a life-based system. There's some like puzzly elements, but not too much. Um, but then I got the cherry condition for this one, and the cherry condition requires you to like end up with 75 lives or more by beating the game. Whereas the first time I beat the game, I had like 10 left. So I was like, oh my god, 75 lives. Beating the game is 75 lives. And once you try to get that requirement, the game feels like it's opened up in a whole new way, because instead of just regular platformer stuff where you're trying to get through it, you're analyzing each part of the level and trying to see, okay, how can I get the most lives possible out of this one situation? How can I be more efficient? And it turns a platformer into like a strategy game, a strategy puzzler. And I find that really fascinating about how the game opens up after it gives you a new requirement by the end. And like, it's not like the gameplay changes or anything. It just, the way you interact with it and your goals and your motivations change completely. And that is fantastic. I'm going to put Mortal. I'm considering S. Yes, I'm gonna put it in S. I gotta forget about to put this above Paint Chase, of course. I love Mortal. I'm getting the feeling I'm gonna have to adjust this. I'm gonna have a lot of S tiers by the end. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Velgress. Okay, Velgress was the first one where I didn't stop after being both hard and uninteresting to me. Velgress was interesting to me, but it was too dang hard. I could barely get the first level down when I beat it. Uh, I I do like Velgress, but I played a lot of Doodle Jump as a kid, and I feel like Velgress is not meaningfully different compared to Doodle Jump in a lot of ways. Okay, the controls are a lot different, and the fact that it's an active platformer instead of an automatic platformer does like massively change the way you play. Um, but also like it's just Doodle Jump. Velgress is just Doodle Jump, and I find like okay, what else does it add? I mean, aesthetically, it's different, of course. It's level based, and it's something that you can actually beat. There's a shop with items that really don't affect things very much. I guess there is like the side condition, which honestly, if you can beat the game, if you can gold this game, you can cherry it pretty easily. It's not like a massive requirement or anything. I found that really disappointing. Where like what do you have to do? You have to shoot three different birds throughout the level, and it's not like they're difficult to kill or anything. They're not attacking you, and yeah, it's just it wasn't very interesting to me. I'm gonna put this in the I'll put this in the lower B tier. I enjoyed it, and I think it was worth sharing and everything, but I don't find it particularly interesting because again, it's just Doodle Jump. Planet Zoldath. Now I know a lot of people are going to put this down here. I have heard a lot of people say that this is their least favorite. Like, probably one of the bigger consensuses I've seen on the game is that Planet Zoldath is one of the worst. But I think Planet Zoldath is fine. I don't have any. It's not my favorite game in the collection, but it's nice to have like uh, an idea of a early roguelike Metroidvania. Um, and I really enjoyed discovering all the interactions within the game. Because at first it feels like there's not a lot you can do, and that there's some impossible levels. Like anytime one of the guys in the shell was blocking an area, it took me like I had to play the game so many times before I realized that there was actually a way past that. Uh, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting interactions in the game, and I think it's really valuable. I enjoy Planet Zoldath just a little bit more than Velgress, so I'm gonna put that right here. Good game. Or I was gonna say I could see why people don't like this, but now that I think about it, I really don't. I don't understand what's so frustrating about this game. Uh, like, yeah, there's a lot of unintuitive things and a lot of discovery you have to do. That's true with like a lot of the games in the collection. I'm not sure what makes Planet Zelda stand out to people. Um, Maybe because it can be a little slow and the random generation can get a little tiring at times. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it. I like Planet Zoldath. There's a lot to discover, and I'm not gonna replay it anytime soon. But I enjoyed that first few playthroughs before I finally beat the game, and I felt like I've conquered Planet Zoldath. Tactics. I don't know. I did share this one, and I kind of liked it. I want to say I liked it, but like I like strategy games, and I like puzzle games, and I like those hyper twitch games like Paint Chase. But Tactics just didn't do it for me for whatever reason. It was worth playing, like I said, so I'm gonna put this in B tier. I say C tier is when it's like I'd rather really not play this. But Tactics was fine enough. It was worth playing, but it feels like it's a strategy game that is once you figure out some like how to abuse the archer mechanic. Basically, archers are so incredibly strong in that game, and like flanking the AI, it's not that interesting to me. Yeah, I'll put that in lower B tier. Now, I do want to say that Tactics, I'm pretty sure, has a multiplayer mode, and it feels like a game that'd be a lot better in multiplayer than it is in single player. But I did all of these single player basically, so maybe there's a lot of depth to the Tactics that I just didn't notice. But don't like a Tactics. Not a big fan. Devolition. I like Devolition. So yeah, Devolition is another strategy game, but it's also a strategy game that I found very easy and intuitive. Um, it's like it's a very simple cause and effect. There's not a lot of like resource management you have to deal with. It's I mean, unless you get like incredibly unlucky, um, with some like frustrating drops. Like if you get nothing but X's or nothing but the pluses, then that's a little frustrating because it means you can't do a lot. But yeah, I'm not gonna. It's fine. I like Devolition, but it's not my favorite. It's nowhere near my favorite. It's too simple to me. And even the cherry condition for it, I was a little bit short of the cherry condition the first time. But I was like, okay, sure, I'll play this again. And I did it. It's like, okay, I got nothing new out of this. I learned what all the pieces do. I figured that out. I figured out how to get all the demons. It's not. I'm not getting very much out of Demolition. It was fine. I like it. Worth playing. Enjoyed it. I'm not. I would not recommend this game to anyone. Okay, I think I've decided these tiers. S is like one of the best games in this style I've played. A is really good and I would recommend it. B is it was fine, not gonna recommend it. C, I'd rather not play this. And D is when I'll get to the D's, but yeah, D is do not play. I'm never playing this shit again, basically. Kit Club. Kit Club is interesting. Oh I Kit Club is interesting to me because I can't think of anything that's particularly offensive about Kit Club. There's nothing I I can point to and say I dislike Kit Club, but I would play the levels one at a time, and it felt like they were fairly repetitive to me. The ball motion, the combat system, uh, like there's something there, but it's both too. It's so like taking away the theme of the game. The mechanic is that after you shoot something, you only get that one shot, and then you got to go over somewhere else on the map and then shoot again. And I don't find that interesting at all. Um, the and it's pure combat. I feel like in a platformer based game, I'd find that more interesting to have to deal with. But as it is, not a fan. Not a fan of Kit Club. You know what? I'm gonna put that in the first C. I dislike that more than the tactics, and I would say I dislike the game. I don't think it's okay. I mean, it's inoffensive, but I don't like it. Do not like Kit Club. Avianos. Avianos is the first like 4X strategy game. I really enjoy 4X strategy games, and it was fun like learning the systems for this one. Um, and I really enjoy playing it. But it's another one of those games that once you figure out the game systems, I feel like there's not a lot to go off of. There's not a ton of depth. Or there is a lot of depth in the game, but it is once you've explored those depths, there's not a whole lot more to explore. um, like I had like a couple of different strategies in mind by the end that worked for basically everything, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm gonna put this in A tier, but yeah, I've had my fill of Avianos. I could probably pick it up again at any time and still enjoy myself, but yeah, I don't. I feel like I'm being a lot more negative than I actually feel. I do like this game. I really like this game, but I think this is going to be a defining lower end of A tier for me because it's something I can say I really like, but also I look at it and go I don't want to play that again. Yeah, Mooncat. Now, Mooncat is really unique. I don't. It's one of those games where you don't want to spoil it, but like the way you play Mooncat is so interesting to me, and there was a whole lot of joy into playing Mooncat for the first time and just figuring that game out, and I had a whole lot of fun with it. Um, I there are also a lot of secrets in the game which I thought were a lot less fun. I think just beating and golding the game is it. I think that getting the gold in the game is a lot more fun than sharing it because I feel like there's not I don't. So it's kind of like Mortal, where the first time you play it, it's like, oh, this is fun, but on the second time you play it, there's a lot more depth and a lot more to discover. But the discovery in Mooncat um, is a lot less interesting. I'm just gonna leave it at that because the first playthrough is just so magical that anything after that is kind of disappointing. So I'm gonna put that. Am I gonna put that above Ninpak? This is very important. The fate of the tier list depends on this. Yeah, sure. Let's put it above Ninpak. Who cares? Bushido Ball. Okay, so this is another multiplayer one, kind of like a tactics, where I assume is better in multiplayer. But I liked Bushido Ball a lot. First time I played it, I was like, this is hard. I dislike that. It's basically Pong. But when I kept playing it, and I figured out all the differences between the characters, I figured out how the special moves worked. Once you reach a level of understanding to engage with it in a better way, it becomes a whole lot more fun. There's only a couple of characters I super enjoy. The Wind guy and the Ryu, whoever the main character is. I call every fighting game main character Ryu because they're the most basic kind of ones that get you used to the game systems. Whoever the Ryu is, I liked him. The more special characters that were like weirder, I wanted to like, but I found like really difficult to actually win with them. Like the big armored guy seems like a whole lot of fun. I really like how unique he was, but he was also like really difficult. So I was like, okay, I don't want to deal with this one. I'm just gonna stick to the simple ones. So yeah, I'm gonna say I really liked it. I'd be more willing to replay it than Avianos, but not more than Magic Garden. So Bushido Ball, good, like it. Block Koala, dislike Block Koala. Like I said, I like puzzles. I like strategy. I don't like the block-based puzzle games. I know there's a lot of games like Block Koala, and I don't like those either, to be honest. They're just selling about the block moving puzzle games I really don't like, and I can't pin down why. I hate those kinds of games. I can't tell if like Block Koala is good or bad compared to them, because that's just I hate that genre, and I dislike the visuals in the game as well. It's abstract in a way that I think is really uninteresting. I dislike this goddamn koala's face so much. It's too cute for me, but it's also like sterile in its cuteness. It's not like watching some Pixar character looking all cute and everything. It's like, okay, we have this one mascot and this empty void that they live in, and it's a whole lot of nothing. I hate Block Koala. One of my least favorites in the collection. Ugh. God, I'm gonna say in defense of Block Koala, I just dislike the genre. Maybe it's not too bad in comparison to the genre, but I hate block puzzles. They're just so boring, and they require so much thought. Like, there's a moment in every block puzzle where I'm just staring at the screen. It's like burning into my screen where I'm like, okay, I have to strategize every single move in advance before I do this, and it's like, at that point, why even have it be a video game? That seems like something that you can have it as a just a New York Times paper puzzle game or whatever, because I don't know. I didn't find it very interesting or unique. Camouflage is, it's like in theory a stealth game, right? But it's basically another puzzle game, and I enjoy Camouflage, but I'm not gonna revisit again. I cherried it as well, and I enjoyed playing it. I'm not gonna say it's in the A tier. I wouldn't recommend Camouflage to anyone, but it was a fun little time. I liked it. I feel like there's like not a lot to mention because it is very basic. It's another one of those like navigate the area puzzles. You don't have to push any blocks, but you do have to go through the level in a very specific way. And the camouflage system is intuitive enough. Like, you can see through color what you're supposed to do and where you're supposed to go. So it's very easy to identify on the map what you're supposed to do next. So, like, Ironically, I think this would be a better game for kids than Block Koala. Um, so yeah, I like Camouflage. We're gonna put that in the higher B tier, right above Planet Zoldath, because I don't know, it's cute, it's easy, it's fun, and then once you figure out the puzzles and kind of get used to it, it's like, yeah, all right, I get this, I understand. Next is Campanella. Now, the first time I played Campanella, I hated it. This was one of my least favorite games, but in between sessions of other games, I was like, okay, I'll revisit Campanella. Game's pretty fast, and as I played it more and more and like understood the levels and understood the mechanics better, I grew to really like Campanella. Like even optimizing each level is a lot of fun. Like getting through all of it without dying and while killing all the enemies, getting the highest score you can so you can get more lives for the harder areas is really nice. It's a form of grinding that doesn't take very long, but it also gets you accustomed to the mechanics and like makes you feel more confident for when you get to the more difficult levels later in the game. And sharing it is interesting because of each little secret in each level. Um, I don't like. In theory, I think the cherry condition is really bad, but in practice, it means like just kind of going around each level, going like, okay, where's the secret? Where's the secret? What can I do here? And that's not super engaging, but it does mean that you have to like fly around in more tricky to spot areas throughout the entire level to find wherever the secret is. And I did enjoy that. That was fun. But the funny thing with Campanella is that when you're trying to get the cherry condition, you end the game with like 20 lives or whatever because you've been playing the game so much at that point. It is a little bit grindy, but it's still a lot of fun, and I would highly recommend Campanella. Um, do I put that above Mooncat though? I think I do put that above Mooncat. It took me such a long time to like Campanella that it feels weird to put it that high. And because I had such a strong dislike for it the first time I played, it feels weird again. You know what? I think that's an S tier game. Campanella's S tier. Great game. Love Campanella. Golf area. Okay. This is when I got to golf area, it was a joy. Seeing a golf Zelda like kind of game where you're exploring this epic adventure as a golf ball and it's themed around the golf ball. Just the concept is so much fun. Um, Gameplay wise, like it's a reverse difficulty curve game where it's really difficult in the beginning and then it gets easier and easier as you get upgrades, which I enjoy. I think that's a people say like the reverse difficulty is outdated in a lot of ways, but I love like being really weak in the beginning and then getting really strong and everything. Um, I really enjoyed the setting. I think I would enjoy it more if like there was more. There's a decent amount of like absurd lore within the game. It's one of the few games where I'm actually interested in lore. I usually don't give a fuck, but in golf areas, like, okay, I want to talk to all these different golf balls. I want to see the story for this fucking golf place. I want to see like why everyone's hiding underground. Oh god, I love golf area. Um, I think I'm gonna put an A tier because I don't think I'm gonna revisit anytime soon. But my time with it was a lot of fun. Gonna put that below Ninpek. I think I'd love to see another golf area like game that switches the mechanics up a bit because by the end it can get like you feel like that you've exhausted everything that you can do in golf area, at least for me, where it's like, yep, I figured this out, I know what to do now. I feel like there's not a lot to to find here. And the cherry condition, I did not bother to cherry this game. I didn't care. It's one of those games where you have to 100% to get the cherry condition. I hate being a completionist. I go through the game and I look for the parts I enjoy, and once I've had my enjoyment. I'm done. I don't need to 100% something. Um, like I enjoy getting high scores because you have to play differently, and there's always something it feels like you can improve. But 100%ing an exploration that game for me is like, okay, I have to go everywhere, and it's gonna take a long time. I know that in Campanella there is an element of that, of like having to reach every part of the map, but in Campanella that takes like less than a minute for each level, whereas with Golf Area you have a massive map and it's not worth looking everywhere because you have to. If you do that, then you retread a lot of ground, and it's like, okay, did I find everything here? I think I did, and I don't know. It it's the most boring cherry condition in the entire collection. I want to say, did not like Golf Area. Now, Big Bell Race. This is what I find funny about the Big Bell Race is like you start with Campanella, right? And then in the story, it's like, okay, we're gonna shit this one out as fast as we can using the same controls and everything, but we're just gonna make it into a racing game with very little effort put into it. And I find that very funny. So the concept is great. I know a lot of people dislike the Big Bell Race, and I wouldn't recommend it, but I think it's fine. I like it. There's enough strategy in there where I enjoyed getting the cherry condition for it. And I felt like there's always something I can improve while playing the Big Bell Race. But yeah, I'd say I enjoyed my time, but I'm not gonna revisit it, and I would not recommend it. Putting that, I'll put that below a tactics. Yeah, that feels like a good place to put it. All right, Warp Tank. I I liked Warp Tank at first. I or Warp. I'm gonna be honest, Warp Tank was too hard for me. There are a lot of levels where I get to it and I'm like, what? What do I do now? And at one point I got all the levels that I could access and I beat all of them. I was like, okay, I've been enjoying this. But then I couldn't figure out how to progress in the overworld between the levels. Like, imagine if I was on like Super Mario Galaxy or whatever, right? It's like, okay, how do I get to the next level? And that being the biggest problem of the game is figuring out how to access the overworld. I Yeah, if this was like selecting levels from a screen, or I like the way I don't want to add suggestions to Warp Tank because I like the concept of the overworld being kind of a final test for your play style, but also at one point it got too big for me. I didn't want to draw a map or anything to figure out how to get through Warp Tank. Um, yeah, there's also some story in it, stuff in it. It feels like Golf Area. And once I got to Warp Tank, where it's like all these vehicles are talking to each other, and there's this like whole overarching narrative going on. At that point I didn't care. Um, it feels bad to put this in C tier because I was enjoying it until I got stuck. But once I got stuck, I was like, I dislike this. I don't want this. I think for Warp Tank, like a lot of people are going to enjoy this more than me, especially if they connect with the mechanics better. Or maybe I just need to get good, to be honest. To be honest, I feel like if I kept on slamming my head against the wall, I would enjoy Warp Tank. But yeah, I just kind of stopped. All right, next is Waldorf's Journey. Uh, I just kind of want to talk about the narrative for a second. I think it's interesting to have like a dream sequence as the entire game of a seal. I think the narrative itself is like such a novelty, and the ending of the game is so fascinating. It gets like abstract in a way that feels, I wouldn't say out of place, but like it's narratively unique in a way that you wouldn't see in basically any other game I can think of from like the fictional time period in the 80s. Or I guess like I think Echo the Dolphin is supposed to be similar, but I never played Echo the Dolphin. Um, I don't know. I think the narrative is kind of fun on the Waldorf's Journey. It's also a very easy game to beat, so it's easy to watch it. Um, the thing about Waldorf's Journey is that this is the this is the game that made me realize like, oh, okay, this isn't really trying to be um, a retro game like homage, like UFO 50 as a whole, because Walter's Journey is such a flash game, like Kid and Candon and Burrito Bison Revenge, and there's one violent one where you hit a penguin or something as a polar bear. There's a lot of games that feel like just like Walter's Journey. So yeah, I didn't gameplay wise. I felt it wasn't that interesting or innovative, and it wasn't that fun to play for me. I think like I had one run where like okay, I understand the mechanics, and then second run I beat the game. Third run I carried it. It was just such a basic game. I'm not a big Walter's Journey fan. Um, in that way, but yeah, like and I think that like the underwhelming gameplay makes the ending like less interesting as a result because like I go through and like yeah okay whatever, and then I get to the ending and I go oh that's kind of interesting and then it's over. So like it hooks me at the end instead of at the beginning. Um, it's inoffensive, but I'm gonna be putting it in C tier because I gotta fill out this section somehow. Um, Worse than Warp Tank because I enjoyed some stuff in Warp Tank, but Walter's Journey, yeah, it felt too basic for me. Now Porgy. Porgy is another kind of Warp Tank situation where I was really liking it at the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna explore, I'm gonna get all these upgrades, whatever, and then, because the thing about Porgy is that you got to go through all the previous levels before you get to the next level. So every time that you want to restart your run, you have to do everything over again, and that just is not fun to me. Like like in a Metroid game, right? It'll reset all the enemies, but it doesn't reset all of the barriers you broke through because that would be really annoying, and Porty gets really annoying in that way. Um, and it, I don't think I even beat the game to be honest. Like I got to the final boss, is like, okay, I don't want to get all the upgrades required to make this final boss tolerable. There's like some fun in optimizing your run, like finding each little shortcut, but because of the item system and the way it works, um, there's always some annoyance that you have to go through in order to get to the later levels, and I really dislike that. Not a fan of Porgy, and like I said, I was really enjoying it, but it turned out to be one of the most frustrating games I've played in the collection. So I'm gonna put that in the D tier. Onion Delivery. Okay, Onion Delivery is the first one where I really can't say I understand the game. I can't say I really explored it. Uh, it was something that was too hard for me. I think that like anything I say is too hard for me is gonna end up in the C tier by default. Because a lot of these I thought were too hard for me. I thought Paint Chase was too hard for me. I thought Campanella was too hard for me. I thought basically half the games on this were too hard for me, but they hooked me in a way where it's like, okay, this is interesting. There's something here, and I think that I'm gonna have a lot of fun if I try to push through anyway. But with Onion Delivery, it's like, okay, this is a top-down driving game, something I'm not a big fan of anyway, and it's the controls are so unwieldy, and it just not an Onion Delivery fan. I don't want to deliver those onions. So, like, I know that there's a lot of people that like onion delivery, but this is like my list. This is my experiences I want to be putting down in a ordered form. So, based on my experience of onion delivery, um, it gave me the feeling of like I'm gonna put that in C tier. It wasn't like frustrating enough to put it in D tier, where I disliked it with a passion, but it was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, and there is a lot of joy in not knowing what you're doing and not being able to control yourself in a wild and unpredictable game. But after that initial confusion, I just kind of gave up on it. Wasn't worth it. Okay, and next is Caramel Caramel. This is like the shoot 'em ups in this game are really uninteresting. I want to say, like, there is technically like a stun mechanic in Caramel Caramel, that makes it stand out, but other than that, it's like a really tight shoot 'em up, that doesn't give you like a lot of room to for mistakes. The bosses aren't particularly interesting. The shooting isn't interesting. The enemies aren't interesting. The level design isn't very interesting. Um, yeah, I think I don't like Caramel Caramel. I'm not the biggest shoot 'em up fan in general. Gonna put that in D tier, but I think that none of them like. Actually, I'll take that back. I do like shoot 'em ups. I think they're fine. I played some of the earlier Toho games before they got complicated, or I guess like the mid Toho games, around like I want to say like from 6 to 9 or whatever. Um, I like Ikaruga. I like going to arcades and playing with other shoot 'em ups they have there. But Caramel Caramel just doesn't connect. I feel like I'm not experienced enough in the genre to understand what makes a good shoot 'em up and what makes a bad one. But Caramel Caramel does not feel like a good shooter. All right, we're at Party House. Like I said in my Party House tier list video, I put in over 50 hours. I think at this point, probably over 70 hours. And at that time, my record was like 20 streak or something. But now my Party House is at 50. I got to 50. I got to 50 in Party House. A streak of 50, which is so much Party House. I feel like I'm an expert in that game now. Um, I want to put this at the very top. I want to put this right here, but I do have my complaints. Or start off with the good compliment sandwich and everything. So Party House is a very simple deck builder that hides the fact that it's a deck builder, and it creates your fail condition to be very identifiable. And there's a little, it feels like a rush for the risk, where it's like, okay, what sacrifices can I make? What risks can I take in order to get the best possible score, or what risks can I take to make sure that I'm able to win this run without ruining my streak? And I find that really fun and really interesting. Um, and I like how easy it is to learn and how much depth it seems to hide. But also, like, at a certain point, once you get a streak of at least 50, it starts to feel like there is some runs that are unwinnable. Like, theoretically, you can go through all of Party House and just get three wild buddies each turn, three trouble each turn, and then just lose, where it's completely out of your control. So there is like an element of randomness that can really make things unenjoyable. Um, and over the long term, you can run into those. Like, I have had some really bad seeds. I remember the one that ended my run. I had basically no way I had absolutely no way of generating money, and the highest possible uh, popularity bonus was a 3. And I was like, oh man, I am not gonna win this one. And it was like the 255 popularity ones, the genie and no, I think there's the genie's the highest cost one, and I must have gone like the superhero or whatever, and I just couldn't generate. I feel like there was no way for me to win the run that lost me, um, and for most of the game, it feels like there's always something to learn, but once you get to a certain point, it feels like there there are some runs that are unwinnable, and the rest are so easy that you can't lose. So for that reason, I want to put Party House a little bit lower because it has gotten me a little bit frustrated. I'm gonna. It has to be S tier, but I'm thinking gonna no, not below Campanella. I do really like Pain Chase though. I think it'd be funny to put Party House. I think Party House is like the favorite in the entire pack, and with good reason. But after putting at least 50 hours, what I think is like 70, 80 hours into the game, I started to find some flaws. Oh, God. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to Party House. But that is my experience where I had some negative. There were some things where I thought weren't so great about Party House, even though so much of it is amazing. And oh my god, the music! Party House is some of the best music in the entire pack, and it always makes me happy to get the higher floors and to switch up the music. It's so much fun, and I think it's a really cute idea for a deck builder. Like not actually having cards, but instead like putting them onto a face, and makes it a whole lot more fun. And like all the different like people and the entire concept of like having up this party with all this wild stuff happening. I feel like I never get tired of that. I've seen a superhero and a dinosaur and a cook all at the same party. I think conceptually that's very funny. So I love Party House. It's easily S tier. Hotfoot was interesting. Uh, I mean, this one is kind of like Bushido Ball and Tactics, where it feels like it was made for multiplayer, but the single player mode was really fun. I like all the different kids, where each one has their own like special ability, and they all feel unique in a way. And by the time I cherried Hotfoot, I felt like there was a lot of diverse ways of playing the game, and I found that really surprising for such a simple concept of like dodgeball. Um, and I do like the narrative throughout the game. Uh, what was it? The the one kid who doesn't get picked from when you're choosing your characters at the beginning, uh, ends up being the ending the game with I want to say with like an eye patch, and then with the monkey. So much. It's such a funny story mode, and it's simple. Like there's like what 5 lines of dialogue throughout your entire playthrough, but it ends up being really charming anyway. Um, I'm not gonna play it again, and I want to say that gameplay wise, it's super interesting. So I'm gonna put them in the top of B tier. That feels like a good place to put it. Divers. Okay. Is Divers the game I've played the least? Yes. um Divers is like a JRPG exploration game. Um and like I said, it's the game I played the least, but the entire concept of it was like, I am not going to enjoy this. I immediately clocked it, and I was like, I'm not gonna like this. Maybe it opens up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like, okay, this is gonna be some grindy bullshit I don't care about, and I'm gonna have to be farming money. It's gonna be just like Porgy, actually. That was my main point of comparison. Like, oh my god, it's Porgy but worse. I hate it. Not as much as Block Koala, but did not enjoy the small amount of divers I played. I mean, I say small amount. I probably played for at least an hour, and didn't get super far. And there were some play. I did some exploring. I found some things, and that was mildly interesting. But I did not get much out of divers. Do not like. Rail heist. Rail heist is interesting. It's like an immersive sim kind of thing where you have a lot of variety in how to beat each level, um, and there's a lot of experimentation you can do and a lot of interaction between the mechanics. But the way I ended up doing it is to I basically played every level the same way, getting to the top of the train, and then digging down, and then getting the objective, then shooting everyone one at a time. I've seen some people online where they do a lot of cool, fancy stuff, but I'm too basic for immersive sims. I'll always do the easiest possible choice, unless the game like is actively pushing me to try new things. Um, I don't I don't think I beat Rail Heist. I didn't gold it or whatever. But I think I played through at least like 15 levels or so, and I got kind of bored. Um, Gotta put this below Kick Club right here. This list is looking a lot more even than I expected. I was thinking it'd be skewed to the top a lot more, but I am realizing that there are a lot of games I didn't like so much. But now we're on to Vanger, or I have no idea how to pronounce it. Um, this is the first like game that surprised me with its scope. Like most of these games, blah, blah, besides Golf Area, they're all like fairly simple games. Um, Not simple games. They're like games you would only find in, not only, making a lot of strong generalizations. Um, there are a lot of it like simple 80s style games. But Vanger feels like it's something that you could make an indie game today and charge $10 for it, $20 for it, and be a full fledged game, and nobody would complain about a lack of content or something. Whereas a lot of these, I love small games so much, and I think they're underrated and undervalued. But the scope of Anger was really surprising to me. I honestly I would put this above a lot of other Metroidvanias I've played. So many. I think this is gonna go. Is this an S tier game? Gonna put it right here for now and think about it. I like the idea behind the game where each upgrade you get is really three different upgrades where it can change your armor, your weapon, or one other thing I don't remember. I want to say the head. Don't quote me on that. Probably the boots. The boots seem like it would make sense. Whatever, doesn't matter. Like I like that because it opens up the world for each item you get a ton. Whereas like in a regular Metroidvania, you get an upgrade, or like your basic one, you get an upgrade and it's like, okay, what places can I go with this? And it's very easy to. It only seems to open up like a couple of areas, um, but it feels a lot different in Vanguard, even though it's like mechanically basically the same blocks everywhere. Um, you still get a lot of mileage out of everything, and it feels like you're being creative and doing things that you weren't supposed to do. And I enjoy like making a lot of different builds, making exploration based builds, making combat focused builds. One of my favorite things in Super Metroid was that like you could change things up on the upgrades, but you would never really do that, except in very specific situations. But Wenger really gives a lot of creativity in that area, and I love that. Um, I remember the final boss was difficult for me, and it felt like kind of repetitive, and yeah, if there's something about the final boss that I think it's the invincibility. There's a lot of stages where the final boss is invincible that isn't telegraphed very well, and that's really annoying to me. I hate that. Um, so there are like some downsides, and the chair condition is just another get 100%, collect all the things, and I hate that. Like I said, so fingers at the top, but the bottom at the top. Love it. One of my favorites. Going to recommend it, but I have major issues. I wouldn't say I had any major issues. All those things were fairly minor, but like a few moments of frustration that really stuck out to me, I would say. Oh my god, Rock on Island. Okay. Rock on Island was something that's very funny to me because it is a game that is both technologically and design wise a decade ahead of its time. Like, I don't remember when it said, I want to say like 84, 85 or something. Uh, whereas the first tower defense game is like 1994, which is a lot, which is very different from our modern understanding of a tower defense game. Uh, but yeah, the you could have so many sprites on screen on Rock on Island. It's not even funny. Like, okay, it is funny. It is very funny. Like the idea of having 100 different towers on the screen at once on an NES or something. Like nothing, no system in that era could be able to handle a tower defense game in the same way the Rock on Island is, and that is very funny to me. And like I said, like no one even made tower defense games back then. But anyway, like on an individual level, I I like Rock on Island. I beating Rock on Island is very easy. There's almost no strategy required. Basically, plop something down, and then do whatever you can. But um, the cherry requirement means you lose absolutely 0 lives on each level, and that changes everything. It makes everything so much more difficult. And the thing about that is that it very quickly becomes clear that upgrading your character is a lot better than upgrading any of the towers, which I always find disappointing in a tower defense game. Like, I don't want to play an action game that is supported by towers. I want to play a tower defense game, and maybe I can do something during the rounds. Um, so that is frustrating, and a lot of getting the cherry is just walking around and shooting as many things as you can, being supported by your towers. Occasionally, there's also the chickens in this game, which are your econ sort of towers, which are very easily abused, and they turn the final map into a joke, where once you get a few chickens going on, then you can basically fill, like on the final boss, the final map. I literally filled every tile I possibly could on that map and upgraded almost all of them, and just it turned the whole thing into a joke. It was too easy by the end. Um, so yeah, I really like it. Compared to other tower defense games, it's not that great, but it's a genre I love, so that's an easy pass for me. Um, I'll put it above Avianos right there, below Bushido Ball. Like Rock on Island a lot, and I will replay it occasionally. Um, but it's too it's too easy to find the strategy, and once you find the strategy, then the entire game becomes too easy, and that's kind of disappointing. I'd love to play another like Rock on Island like game that like has some that's a very simple version of tower defense game, because stuff like balloons and everything have gone to so complex that it kind of like has taken away the roots of the genre, in my opinion. Sometimes it's a lot more fun just to get back to basics, and Rock on Island really gave me that, which is nice. Pin golf. This is another game that I hated at first. I want to say I loved it at the end. Um, it took me a while to figure out that like dunking is a mechanic, which does change the game a lot. Um, I've played a good amount of 2D golf games, and pin golf is inoffensive, I would say. I think the genre, there isn't a ton new you can do with the genre. Like the dunking mechanic is cool. You can hit slopes in a way that can be creative. So sharing this was fun for me, but it wasn't as interesting as I would have hoped. And while there is a lot of fun, and like in a lot of golf games, you get these occasional moments where you get a hole in one you weren't expecting. It's like, oh wow, I did it, woo. Other than that, there's some high highs and some medium lows where it's like it's a golf game, whatever. Putting that below Devolution and above Velgress. That feels right to me. Mortal 2. Okay, I actually beat Mortal 2 before I beat Mortal 1. Um, I really like Mortal 2. The very idea of like the concept is really cool, where each death need every time you fail, it's a massive setback because that is progress you could have made. Like the first time I played Mortal 2, I lost and I got really close to the end while losing, and it was so disappointing. It's like, okay, I gotta optimize this. I gotta go through the entire game again and do it as well as I can. And optimizing Mortal 2 is so much fun. Like you find so many new ways of playing the game, so many new secrets, so many new paths, and yeah, Mortal 2 is really unique. I'd love to play something like it again. Um, the there's nothing about it that sticks out to me enough to put it in S tier, but I feel happy putting it at the top of A tier. I would love to play a Mortal 2 ripoff kind of game. Um, but it's another game that can only really exist in the short game format, which I really appreciate. I think that Mortal 2 is something that a lot of people want to give a chance, and I don't know. I think it's wonderful. I love Mortal 2. Okay, now we have Fist Hell. Now there's some adjustments that we're going to need for when we're ranking Fist Hell. You know, we gotta just real fast, just a few edits I'm going to make. Yeah, we're gonna call this we're gonna call this F tier, and we're just gonna go ahead and put Fist Hell right there. I hate Fist Hell so much. Like for Blockwalla, there were some puzzles where like, okay, this is a cute little puzzle. I enjoyed it. I find nothing redeeming about Fist Hell. Um, I'll give it like diversity. It has a nice diverse cast you want to see in the 80s. Two female characters who are like muscular and like different races and everything. But also the white guy, the boxer, is just the best one by far. Like there's all these different stats, but once you learned how the game works, none of the stats matter except for punching. Punching is the only thing that matters in Fist Hell, because in most beat 'em ups, right, you have some sort of invincibility when you're doing other things, or there's some amount of reason you would do something besides punching people. but punching is the only thing worth doing in Fist Hell. You have the ability to throw people and to pick them up and do a little crowd control kind of thing, but you don't get any invincibility frames when you're doing that. So if you try to execute those moves, you're leaving yourself open to getting hit, and you don't have a lot of health in Fist Hell, so you never want to use any of those suplex moves. There is some throwing abilities as well, but where you can pick up items and like when you throw an item like a trash can and a beat 'em up, usually that's really good because it's a ranged option. But in Fist Hell, even on the throwing character, who I can't remember, who has like the strongest throws, throwing isn't that useful. It doesn't actually do that much damage, and punching is just better in every way. And there aren't a whole lot of items in the game either. I don't like Fist Hell. There's usually each game in UFO 50 has a mechanic, right? That changes the genre up a little. Like even for these, Caramel had some new mechanic, Porgy had a new mechanic, Divers had a new mechanic. Blockawalla didn't need a new mechanic. But the twists in Fist Hell is that you don't get invincibility frames, and that's it. That's the only thing that's unique about Fist Hell compared to other beat 'em ups. It's the fact that half of your moveset is completely worthless. I hate Fist Hell so much. Like why is this game even here? What was the thought behind it? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Hate Fist Hell. God. just thinking about, like, why would you make a beat 'em up where you're leaving yourself open if you do anything besides your basic attack? It doesn't, like, okay, that is a restriction that seems like it can open up like a challenge run or something, but really punching is the easiest thing to do. You just have to like hit someone and then walk away, hit someone and walk away, and that's how you beat every character in the game. Whereas in a regular beat 'em up, using your crowd control effectively really mixes things up. It adds a lot more strategy to the game, and it makes it more interesting. But adding, I don't know, it's a restriction that does nothing, and I hate it. Overbold. Overbold, I really liked Overbold. It's a game that that punishes me for all the risks I like to take when I'm playing games. Basically every round, I would have no less than 8 bonus enemies on each round. But the thing about Overbold is that, like, I feel like the balance between the enemies that are randomly generated are really unbalanced. The whales, I hate the whales so much. They quickly fill up your screen, whereas the yellow caterpillar guys, they die in one hit, so they're not a problem at any point in the game. But it is a game where, like, building your character up and getting all the stuff is a lot of fun. I like stuff like Binding of Isaac and whatever. But in that game, I feel like you have no control over the build you have. Whereas Overbold incentivizes you to go for new things with discounts each run. So it gives you the incentive to, like, do something differently, but also lets you build something and strategize. Like, okay, what's cheap? What am I going to spend money on? What can I afford? And I think that's a lot of fun. I really like that. I'm not going to put that in S tier. I think it's going to go somewhere in A tier. Above Bushido Ball. Above Magic Garden. Golf Area. This is a tough one. Is it going above Golf Area? Yeah, I'd rather play this in Golf Area. This is going a lot higher than I thought it would. Ninpek. No, that's the limit. It's right above Golf Area, between Golf Area and Ninpek. Right there. Right there. There we go. Um, Now, how do I justify this? I'm not going to justify it. Not at all. Yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of fun. Really like Overbold. I'd revisit again. Um, really recommend it. It's fun to have like a kind of roguelike that you have control over, and that you can, yeah, you can do crazy shit by the end of the game, but it requires like some major difficulties and a lot of risk taking, and I find that a lot of fun. Campanella 2, I think this is the game that I've like played the most after Party House. Campanella 2 was really difficult for me. Like, oh my god. Um, I want to say that this is the hardest game in the collection, but I'm not. Or no, I'm really bad at the shoot 'em ups, so I guess it's got to be one of the shoot 'em ups because I'm really bad at those. But yeah, it's a. The thing about Campanella is that Campanella 2 is that, like Campanella, there's a lot of fuel management. In Campanella 1, fuel isn't a big problem once you get the game. But in Campanella 2, if you want to explore, you have to use a lot of fuel. And exploring is like the thing that's fun about the game. But fuel is so hard to come by that you can barely explore it all. And the safe thing to do a lot is just to go straight to the exit. I found, so you know where the exit is, and that you can go through the level without much trouble. I think there's a lot of fun in Campanella too, but having to manage fuel while being really unique is not very much fun, and it puts you in a lot of situations that feel like, okay, I there's nothing I could do here. I just lost the run, because the map design was just so unintuitive and bad, or not. The map design drains your fuel in a way where it feels like you lose and it's not your fault. So I do dislike that. But overall, Campanella 2 is a lot of fun. It's nice to have like a nice little simple roguelite platformer, without like a big complicated thing going on. But also, because there's not a lot of complicated stuff going on, there are upgrades in the game where you can upgrade your character a lot. But I found that each upgrade doesn't really change the way I play at all. Usually, when I play a roguelike, I want to have runs that are distinctly different in some way. But every run of Campanella 2 felt the same to me. And it's really just felt the same to me in that I was interacting with the game world in the same way I would every time I played the game. And it was just a question of me perfecting my fuel management abilities. And I thought that was really disappointing. So I think I can put this in the B, probably higher B, because it was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it. I think between Camouflage and Planet Zoldath, Zoldath is a good comparison point, where I think it's better than that. But yeah, there are a lot of points of frustration in Campanella too. Hyper Contender. This is a little platform fighter or whatever. I played a lot of like indie platformer fighters, and they're like little party games where you have different things like, oh, all this wacky stuff happening in this map, and you're all gonna brawl it out and everything. Um, the thing that makes Hyper Contender unique though is that each character has wildly different movement abilities, which I think is a really interesting way to differentiate it. Like each character really feels unique. It's probably the most unique per character fighting game I've seen in anything ever. um, by a lot. What would my second place be? Probably like Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Maybe Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yeah, yeah. Each character is unique in Hyper Contender in a way that I don't see in any other game. Probably because the asymmetry in any a game that's attempting to be balanced, um, would be would make the game really unbalanced and uncompetitive, which I don't think is a problem, but it is a problem for certain communities. Because the thing about Hyper Contender is that there is one character who moves like a normal platform character, and that's easily the most intuitive, and I want to say it's easily the best. But maybe if there was a competitive scene, it would look a lot differently. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna put this definitely below Hotfoot, because it's very similar in that way, but less fun. Above a tactics. That's my feeling. That's my gut feeling. I'm getting to the point where I don't want to use too much logic because it's going purely on instinct at this point. Val Brace, the dungeon crawler punch out game. This one was fun. I liked it. I didn't beat the game. I didn't gold it or anything. But I feel like I went through enough where I understood the mechanics, and maybe there's a lot of secrets in the game, but it felt like the dungeon crawling aspect was generic, and it felt like the uniqueness of the game was basically in combining two genres and not in anything else. I feel like maybe you could have made the dungeon crawling more appealing in some way, but like the combat itself wasn't interesting to me, and I can't say anything stood out to me, to be honest. So Valbrace, lower end of B tier, top of C tier, top of C tier for Valbrace, because I kind of lost interest in pretty quickly. Not a lot going on. There's like you explore and you find stuff, which is cool, but none of the stuff I found was super interesting, to be honest. Raksha, pronouncing Rakshasa, Rakshasa. That sounds right. Okay, whatever this is, I feel bad that I'm not pronouncing it right. Rakshasa, is my intuition. Uh, this one I think is really surprising that I didn't beat because I did enjoy it. Um, but maybe I've just like this is the most platform e of the collection, and I feel like I've played a million games that are just like this on the NES. So I was like, okay, this doesn't feel special to me at all. Um, yeah, I didn't play very much of this one, but what I did play, I enjoyed, but I wouldn't replay it. So I guess it goes in C. I wouldn't recommend it. Right below Valbrace sounds right. I warp. It's going down. It's going down right here. It's above Onion Delivery. It felt pretty generic to me. Like, it's a game where it's one of those games where the setting is more interesting than the gameplay mechanics, which doesn't super. The setting doesn't matter that much to me. It felt too similar to something like Ghosts and Goblins for me to really care that much. So, yeah, it's another game that goes down and it's a lack of novelty, in my opinion. I think novelty is something I really enjoyed in UFO 50. I'm beginning to realize, and the games that don't offer that, I get disappointed by. Like Star Whisper, is this going to go in F? This one's really fucking boring. There's nothing interesting in Star Whisper. Okay, there is something interesting in Star Whisper. It goes above Fistel. Well, how does this work? There we go. Star Whisper is like a really generic shoot 'em up. The gimmick is that you need to collect the drops from the enemies in very specific ways, and then you can power ups that way and get high scores that way. But that wasn't very interesting. I dislike the digital controls. Like you have very little control over how much you move left and right and whatever. and that is very frustrating to have in a shoot 'em up. Um, and also like the way it's designed, most of the enemies or a lot of the enemies I noticed are just like shooting straight down towards you in a bullet hell kind of manner. In a bullet hell, like the bullets are spread out and going in certain patterns that are unique to move through, which are really nice to do. Um, so like a lot of the fun comes from a lot of new obstacles you find yourself in. But in Star Whisper, you find a lot of the same enemies fighting in the same way, and you can only shoot forward basically for almost every single ship. You can just shoot forward, and that's all you can do. So you're interacting with everything the same way. There's not a lot of fun dodging you can do. There's no graze mechanics that I enjoy in shoot 'em ups. So yeah, that's an F tier game. There's nothing I found interesting in Star Whisper, and even the story. So in Fistel, at least there's the thing about Fistel is that there's like it's visually interesting. You go through a lot of different interesting places in Fistel. In Star Whisper, it feels so generic, and it's like, oh yeah, you're a spaceship and you're fighting all these aliens or robots or drones or whatever. It's like whatever, who cares? Why does this matter? And it's visually uninteresting. There's no story. I find very little redeeming, but I find it just fun enough where it beats Fist Hell, where I found nothing fun in Fist Hell. Grimstone. I almost forgot about Grimstone. Oh my god. Grimstone is like the longest game in this collection. It's this whole JRPG, which is so fun. And they do the NES JRPG really well. They, I don't know, it's an era for JRPGs I actually kind of like, where things are simple, but they get that tone of upgrading things and exploring, where I feel like simplicity doesn't really bring down the JRPG genre at all. And I enjoyed it. And it's a Western JRPG. Um, I know I just mentioned that like the change in setting doesn't matter that much. But for a JRPG, which is more story focused and exploration focused, I feel like that matters a lot. It feels like you're exploring a lot of new areas that you haven't really seen before in a JRPG, and had a lot of like, I wouldn't say plot lines. The plot line is very much like a fantasy, um, big evil church, empire kind of plot, but set in a Western setting, which makes it unique. So I do think that that is like fun in its own way. It reminded me a lot of Briscoe County Jr., which is a big plus in my eyes. Uh, so yeah, I really liked it. I think it's gonna go A tier, but it doesn't do anything super unique in the genre. So it's gonna go here with like the more generic ones. But it was a lot of fun. I like Grimstone. I'd love to play another like um retro NES style JRPG. I feel like there aren't a lot of new ones by indie developers, so that's a lot of fun. I like Grimstone. Oh, I do want to mention, don't pick the fucking dog at Grimstone. The dog is cute. I love the dog, but it's the worst character in the game by far, and I hate it so much. Hate that dog. Ruined everything. You're basically playing a character down throughout the entire game. Oh, don't pick the dog. Oh my god. Oh, Grimstone. Lords of Disconia. This one I thought was uninteresting when I first saw it, but once I started playing, it's like, oh yeah, this is fun. I enjoy this. Um, it mentioned that it's like based on a board game in the history from like an Indian board game or whatever. I'd really like to play that because I liked it, Lords of Disconia. I thought there was a lot of fun in that game, and I think that putting it in a digital space makes it unique. Like I can imagine throwing these things in the real world and bouncing them off of each other, like a bocce ball kind of thing or something. But a health based system is cool. The upgrade system is cool. The overall overworld strategy, I enjoyed that as well. Um, yeah, it's just really unique. I've never played anything like it, and I enjoy that. So a above Grimstone, above Bushido Ball, below Magic Garden. That feels right. All right, next is Night Manor, horror game, point and click adventure game, but you can't point and click. um, so I think that what makes Night Manor interesting is that like you can't use a mouse on this. A point and click game where you need to use the arrow keys. It feels like something that was on the PC and was ported to a console back then, uh, and that makes it like kind of interesting to have to deal all that complicated interface in a horror game where there's these tense moments, or moments that should be tense in a horror game. I was like, oh man, what are we gonna do? I gotta navigate this menu really fast. Um, that's something that I find really unique in the game horror genre. Like you're not gonna see in a movie someone trying to fucking around with a computer device in a horror movie to the same degree. Like the and I don't know. I find that interesting. That's unique to the horror video games. Um, but Night Manor, I don't like horror video games very much, so I'm going to be putting this pretty low. Um, I know a lot of people like Night Manor, but I don't like horror games and I don't like point and click adventure games. So it's going to go. Let's go above Caramel Caramel. I will say that the plot I think feels really generic. Um, if I saw this in a horror movie, like the plots beat for beat, based on what was happening in the diary entries, I'd be like, okay, well, this is. I don't find this plot particularly interesting, especially the way it's conveyed. I feel like in a horror movie, a lot of the depth would come from the interactions between the family members and like how the dynamic changes over time. But you don't really get to see that in Night Manor. It's after everything has happened, so it's just like there's not a lot of thematic or social interest in the story. The story is based on the novelty and discovery of what has happened, and I didn't find that mystery interesting because it's a mystery that you can clock pretty quickly. So I'm putting that in the lower D tier right there. Elphazar's hat. Fun. I like all the different combinations you can do, but it's not super interesting to me, to be honest. Um, I didn't beat this one, but it was fun enough. It's another one of those games where I feel like I've played a lot of these games as I'm doing my sort of retro game diving. It's like, okay, I'll run around, beat all the enemies, and get to the end of the level. And I guess the system for the power ups is interesting, but like Star Whisper, it doesn't really add a lot. It doesn't change the way I play, and the novelty kind of wears off. So I'm gonna put this below Big Bell Race. I'm glad I played it, but I didn't beat it, and I don't want to beat it. I had my fill. Pilot Quest. Okay, Pilot Quest is the game. If I played Pilot Quest for just a little bit, this would go S tier. It'd be one of my favorites. I love the concept behind it, but after a while, the incremental game gets a little bit grindy, and getting the cherry, or I would say this is the game with the biggest difference between my cherry and my gold. I really enjoyed golding this. It was kind of getting tiring by the end, but it's like, okay, well, it can't stay perfect forever. But getting the cherry for this was just so grindy and unfun. Really dislike cherry in this game. Was not worth it. Um, it's still gonna go in A tier because it was novel and interesting. I like having a incremental game that is like wrapped around an adventure like game. If I were to see like an improved version of Pilot Quest, I would want it to be a Zelda game with some base building. Not a Breath of the Wild Zelda game, a Ocarina of Time style Zelda game, where you find dungeons and everything and have like you use the incremental game to like get items that will help you navigate the world or whatever. I think that would be a lot more interesting because the actual exploring in Pilot Quest is just so boring. After a while, there's not a lot of that's interesting over there. Like you find maybe 2, 3 quests or characters that are interesting to meet. And it's like, there's probably a whole lot more of this. But then you start to realize that that's basically everything that's in the overworld in Pilot Quest. And like, oh, okay, that's it, I guess. So that's kind of disappointing. But yeah, I would recommend this game, and I would be like, oh, hey, this is cool, this is novel, this is interesting, but not super great. Mini and Max. I don't want to spoil Mini and Max, but this is something that is like, oh my god, they made this game. Someone made this game like even after making, or not like after, like they made all these games sequentially, but they're making 50 games, and one of them was as ambitious as Mini and Max. It is incredible. Um, but like I really like Mini and Max, and I think like realizing the scope of the game is just a great moment. But also, I think that it gets kind of grindy by the end, where you're just like looking around in each area and like, okay, where is something interesting, so I can like get the this ending or whatever. And I don't know. I exploring is fun at the beginning, but in order to beat the game, you have to explore more than I think is fun in a Metroidvania. So I'm gonna put that right below Vanger. Yeah, those are my non-spoilery thoughts on Mini and Max. Um, like, this is one of my highest recommendations. I would tell people to buy UFO 50 just for Mini and Max. Um, but it comes with some caveats of thinking that it eventually becomes a bit too much. So yeah, that's my thought for Mini and Max. Next is combatants. Okay, people really hate combatants, and I think that's justified. Combatants is a game where it's like this real time strategy game where it's like, okay, you're gonna uh fight these other ants with your base building and sort of Pikmin like gameplay. Uh, like yeah, it's like a versus mode in Pikmin basically. Except you very quickly realize the enemy is way stronger than you, like an unfair amount of strong. One of their ants can kill 3 of your ants in a straight fight, and it is not fair, and that can be really frustrating if you're playing combatants. It's like, who designed this piece of shit? Why would you do this? But you can start engaging with it in ways like, okay, this AI is cheating. How do I cheat back? How do I beat the game despite all this bullshit the game is playing at me? How do I counter bullshit the bullshit? And that's where the game gets to be a lot of fun. I really like combatants. Like each level becomes a puzzle of like, okay, what stupid shit can I do in this level to beat it? And it's like taking the veneer of a strategy game and turning it into a puzzle game. It reminds me a lot of like, I played a lot of Civilization 5 on deity mode, the hardest mode, and that's a game where instead of the AI getting smarter as the difficulty gets up, the AI instead gets a bunch of extra stuff, so that it makes it more difficult for you to compete with all the resources they have. So you very quickly learn how to exploit the stupid AI that has a bunch more stuff than you do. And it becomes less of a strategy game where you're on equal footing, like trying to move your units in a certain way. More like, okay, how do I exploit the game's mechanics where I can beat all this bullshit? And I love that. I find that really valuable. I understand why people don't, but I love that. I think I'm going to put that right next to Barbuda. It is a Barbuda-like game, and I love it for that. Okay, Quibble Race. Quibble Race is gambling, and I dislike it. And okay, let me elaborate on that. It's a game where you have to guess on some random events, and I do not find that fun at all. Every year, my fucking family gets me lottery tickets, and every year I hate it. For like my Christmas or birthday or whatever, and God, I feel like lottery tickets are so insulting to someone. Like, I care about math, I care about statistics, and it feels like I'm being given nothing. I hate gambling. I hate all of it. I do not find it fun. Like something where you can think about stuff like poker or even like blackjack or something. Like I feel like there's enough going on there to think about the game where there's something to engage with. But in Quibble Race, I feel like it doesn't meet the point where the gambling feels like you're not gambling. It's just like randomly winning or randomly not winning. And yeah, it's not worth it. I don't like Quibble Race. Worse than Star Whisper, better than Fistel. That's my intuition. Campanella 3. Gonna be honest, I really hate the fake 3D effect in a lot of 2D games, 16-bit games. Maybe if I was alive during that time, I'd have nostalgia for it. But when I look at the SNES and I look at Star Fox and I look at Super Mario Kart, and not as much with the F-Zero because F-Zero is like very simple in comparison. But when I look at Star Fox and Super Mario Kart, I'm like, I cannot play this game. It gives me motion sickness. Not motion sickness, but like it physically affects me in a way that very few other styles can, and I really dislike it. I enjoyed it enough to not put it in F, but it's going down to the bottom of D. Oh, Seaside Drive. Okay, I like Seaside. I talk shit about a lot of the shoot 'em ups, Caramel Caramel and Star Whisper, but Seaside Drive was like interesting. It has a gimmick that makes it interesting, where you have to keep on moving back and forth, and you can't. It's not like you're shooting straight up or anything. It's like it's wildly changes based on the way you move, and learning that mechanic is so much fun. Getting used to it is really rewarding, and I'm gonna put that in. That's going in A tier. It's going on above Ninpeck and below Mooncat is my feeling. I would love to, like, Seaside Drive is going to be a lot of like inspiration for more unique shoot 'em up mechanics, because I'm realizing it made me realize that how much more you can do with the genre. Like you don't have to shoot straight forward. You don't need to be positioning yourself carefully. You can have a game that encourages you to wildly move back and forth and encourages you to like just get in a little bit of damage while dodging all the stuff you have to deal with. And I think that's fun. I really like Seaside Drive. Never played anything like it before. Maybe there's stuff out there I don't know about, but it feels really unique. Cyber Owls. My friend pointed out to me Cyber Owls is like kind of a joke, in that it's a compilation game like UFO 50, and I think that is funny. But each individual game was uninteresting to me, so let's put this somewhere in C tier. I didn't play very much Cyber Owls, but once I got the concept, I was like, Ha, that's funny. It's a compilation game. It's like, okay, I'm done with this. Whatever. Uh, yeah, right there, near the bottom of C. Now, I'm pretty happy with this list. I'm not gonna change anything. I like being free flowing with everything I choose and where I place things. And I'm really happy with this list. I like I like showing. I know in the big middle I was saying that it was getting more native than I expected, but it really does go to show you that like how much of this game I loved. I really liked. Like the D and F tier together, like probably make up the A tier. Um, and overall, I'm very positive on UFO 50. I'm glad I played all. I'm glad I tried out all of these games. Um, but like, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of fun. I'm also noticing that in this tier list, Campanella 3 and Seaside Drive have their icons flipped around, which is funny. Uh, but yeah, love UFO 50. I think I got all the thoughts on these games that I really cared to share. So now I'm probably not going to play UFO 50 in a very long time. I want to avoid playing it because I play so much of it. I think I mentioned I played over 200 hours last year. I looked at my Steam year in review literally today. I was like, oh wow, I basically just played UFO 50 in 2024. I should probably expand to playing games other than UFO 50 because I've just kind of been subsumed into this ecosystem. And I'm very happy I did. I love UFO 50, but I gotta play something else some other time. Or else I'm gonna be playing all these games forever. Because they're I like having all this novelty in a very similar format. And yeah, UFO 50 is a fun time. Love it. Glad I played all these games. Uh these S tiers are like life changing. Not life changing. They changed my understanding of the medium in a way I find very valuable. And a lot of these games do change the way I think about games. I really like that. It really expanded what I think genres can do. And I think that's the most valuable of all. And I'd like to see what other people's tier lists. Like I said, I really like hearing people's tier lists. I want to see what people like, what people don't like, what people disagree with on mine, what they do agree with, and what resonated with them. So yeah, feel free to share.